All right, I think we're kind of settling into a nice solid number for this webinar. So again, welcome everyone to benchmarking and introduction. Um, and Stefan, I think many of you know me by now. I'm Stephanie Altman. I am VP of Marketing at Agency Revolution and looking forward to the warmth, which means baseball season. I also just noticed that Mustard is wearing yellow sneakers in that picture, and that's pretty cool. So, where do we get started with benchmarking? I'm sure many of you are actually already thinking about benchmarking in your own ways, just maybe not having the official kind of name or framework to put around it. So, basically, benchmarking is evaluating or checking something by comparison with a standard. It really is looking at data, comparing it to a standard set of data. You can do that internally or externally. So you can either measure yourself against what you've done before, whether in the same channel, cross channel, or some combination of the two. And then external benchmarking is a comparison of you to other agencies, other organizations, other industries, or kind of industry standard aggregated data. But it really, the simplest terms, benchmarking is just doing a comparison. um, I think some of you know from coming to some of these before, I'm a competitive runner, and for me, benchmarking is always against myself and my previous times. If you know, there are people who are far faster than I am who are looking at true competitors for themselves. So even within the same activity, you can think about things differently. This is a favorite of mine. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. Famed economist Peter Drucker said that. This is like a mantra for me. I talk a lot to my team and to others about a measurement mindset, and it really comes from this concept. I first heard it when I was an undergrad, and it's stuck with me for 20 plus years. Can't measure it, you can't improve it. And it's also bleeds into other things in your professional life. When I say feedback is a gift, that's part of this, and that's part of your benchmarking approach. Like, you want that data, you want to see it come in, so that way you can figure out what to do better or just differently. Sometimes improvement is just doing something different. All right. So, why are we here? Why is this important? Benchmarking helps you understand what good means. I had a role once where I came in and someone had the kind of head of marketing had been vacant for a while. And I was talking with some of the folks on the team, and they're like, "Yeah, this campaign did really good." I said, "Cool. Like, how did it do compared to what? Like, what was this? How much better than historical did it do?" And they all kind of just stared at me. Good means something when we're talking about marketing practice. Good means that you've had a lift, you've created more sales, you've created more awareness, you've done a 0.5% open rate better than your standard. Like, good is not just the general term that we use kind of in our outside of work lives. Benchmarking is also important because it helps you compare to your peers, to your industry, and to competitors. You want to know how you're doing kind of as part of that big picture, as part of insurance agencies in aggregate. Like, how you doing? Where are you sitting? And then this really goes back to the if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. You want to make smart decisions for your agency and for your agency's marketing. Marketing generally costs money. You want to spend that money in the most effective way possible. And benchmarking will help you make those decisions based on data. All right, so thinking about your agency specifically, there are so many things that you can get out of some very basic benchmarking. Process improvement, looking at goal setting. We're shortly into the new year. Hopefully, some of you heard me talk about making marketing part of your yearly planning. This is where benchmarking comes in. Tracking progress for yourself, tracking progress for how your agency is doing against those competitors. Just monitoring improvement. Sometimes it takes a while, especially in marketing, to really start to see those results. And this is how you can look at that improvement over time. I mentioned just a minute ago that marketing does tend to cost some money. So you manage your costs, you get real smart with that spend. increase your sales, determine your competitiveness. Perhaps by looking at benchmarking, you can identify a niche that you hadn't thought of before. Uh, can help you increase innovation. Sometimes realizing that everything you're doing might not be quite hitting industry standards, that can really help you kind of think outside the box, try something crazy that could work for you. Also keeping track of the market. We're in the hard market. We all know that we're kind of going through that right now. And so this looking at yourself or even benchmarking kind of against that market can see where it's going. It gives you some specifics to share with your staff, to share with your clients, and to share with your peers in any organizations. And specifics are great for communication. We love some data points. It's going to help you there. And perhaps most important are kind of the last two. It can really give you a sense of your business and where your business can grow, where it is growing, and where you've got opportunity. And then to do that, be smart about evaluating the initiatives that will help get you there. So marketing benchmarking is the thing that we're really focusing on today, though we'll talk a little bit later about the ways that you can kind of take that mindset and apply it to other parts of your business. So we mentioned the internal, external before, but this is really kind of getting a little bit more granular in terms of a place to start. Because the thinking about like, oh my gosh, where do I go? Like against who outside? Look at industry standards. There are many, many reputable sources where you can find averages, general success metrics, a number of CRM systems and marketing platforms will have things, and this is kind of what this industry looks like or that industry looks like. Look at consulting firms. Many of them do annual surveys or annual studies, and they'll say, yep, average engagement rates for insurance usually gets thrown in financial services. So just beware for financial services is, X, Y, or Z. Trust your gut on those reputable sources. If you have a question like, I don't know about this, then you can probably find a better source. But look at industry standards and then just look at how you're doing in aggregate against those. It's a great place just to start very simply. Look at it against yourself. You've got data in your email client, your web platform, your Google Analytics, your social platforms. If you're using marketing automation such as Fuse, you've got a dashboard in there. Same thing, we mentioned your web platform. Forge has a great dashboard as well. That data for you to look back at is generally pretty available to you in things that you're already using. So look at those. Dump it out to Excel if you prefer to look at it that way. You can really get that data and organize it in a way that makes sense to you. And then as you continue to do new initiatives, look at how that compares to that previous data. And again, if you're using platforms such as Forge and Fuse that already have some built-in dashboards, like that's even the easiest place to start. I would say other platforms like Google and LinkedIn, you can do kind of a look back over previous 30 days, previous campaign, all the way back to a year back. And also look at your AMS data as well. There's probably something in there where you can see, where you might want to be looking. The other way to benchmark is to look at every campaign you run, and this requires a little bit more structure in terms of your marketing campaign. So every activation but then I realized campaign can sound really scary. I don't mean campaign means you are sending this email on this day, this next email 3 days later, and then you're doing a call, and then you're doing a social post. Just think of every execution to start very base as its own campaign. And then you can do that against one of my favorite statistics, ROMI, return on marketing investment. The most basic way to calculate that is kind of your revenue generated divided by the cost of your campaign. We'll get into ROMI a little bit later because that is something that is really fundamental to benchmarking against yourself, and also something that will continue to come up throughout this series. If you want to call it successful, so it's a break even. You didn't gain or lose, anything. You got some learnings, so you gained in that case. Anything less than break even, I would say rethink your message, your tactic, your timing. I set for my team, I like to say we want a 2.5 ROMI to say something was truly I'll say resounding success. truly something where we want to go back and make sure we're doing it again. Break even's kind of the minimum where we would consider it, maybe as part of maybe a larger stream in the future. Don't worry, we will come back to Romy for some more specifics there. This is all of us sometimes when we're talking about benchmarking, right? And maybe also when measuring things inside our house. So just think about like the type that is going to have the biggest impact to you. And in some cases, the one that's easiest for you to get the data for is the one that's going to have the biggest impact, because you don't want to be devoting all of your marketing efforts into measuring your marketing, then you're not getting anything done, right? So industry benchmarks are out there. You can find them pretty easily, but keep focus on what you're doing, or you are the most important person in here. Your ability to connect with your clients, to connect with your prospects, to connect with your COIs, that's what really counts here. So look at those internal measurements. You want to look at your competition, know what they're doing, but remember that as you are benchmarking yourself, ultimately you're getting to a place where you're going to be more efficient. You're going to be able to take care of your clients better. SMART goals, right? That's pretty much all I have to say about that. Right? You always want to be setting SMART goals. Don't think about boiling the ocean. Don't think about trying to do everything at once. Keep it simple, keep it measurable. And then look at like what you're doing for now. Look at what you might want to just try later, something a little wild. We always advocate maybe saving about 10% of your budget just to try something a little crazy. This is a great method to think about. Is that actually working? Kind of like, what are my internal standards? Okay, that guy's making me dizzy now. So now we're kind of getting past benchmarking. Since this is kind of the introduction, we want to talk a little bit bigger picture. It's so important in marketing, but again, the measurement mindset that comes as part of benchmarking really can do great things when you look at other parts of managing your agency. So, here's just a couple of examples, but I bet you everyone out there can think of one or two others that would make sense for them, something that they want to measure against historical performance or measure against their competitor a mile away. So look at your sales velocity. Look at how fast is someone kind of raising their hand to give you a call to when they actually have a policy with you, and then see what you can do about that if you want to kind of shrink that down a little. And then another thing is look at your client retention rates, and what could you possibly do to increase those. This is where that client communication that we said, really taking care of your clients in both of these situations, can be super, super helpful. And this is where, again, I point back to look at the data that you have really accessible to you, because those are things that you can use to benchmark these. Again, I'll point to the Fortune Fuse dashboards as places that you can find a lot of this data, particularly for client retention with Fuse, which will be linked in with your AMS. So it's all kind of already in one place. All right, promise to tell you where to look for some good benchmarking data. So reliable is really what's so important, reliable and relevant. We are not in consumer packaged goods. We are not in luxury retail. This is insurance. So those things that might be really interesting to look at in terms of, well, what are other industries doing? They are other industries. So for that external data, look for insurance. Just will point out again that we are frequently thrown in with financial services by some of those larger research firms. So just don't ignore that financial services data. And that's where we get into industry specific versus general. So industry specific, get as granular as you can, and that's where even some industries will have, for example, regional studies that you can look at. General data is really good too, though, just to kind of say, okay, how does our industry look against general data? And then how do I look against our industry? So I say general, that is aggregated, no industry specific, nothing, say things like email open rates or email click-through rates, kind kind of website visits, things like that. Very, very general. Um, and this one, it feels simple, but sometimes we get so caught up in like, where do I go, that we get a little bit stuck. There are a ton of great publications that are focused on our industry that have really interesting data that they publish with some regularity. Always a solid place to start. But because you're talking about marketing benchmarking, look at marketing places too. I personally read the HubSpot blog every day. They have some really good sources there, and it's super easy to find and very easy to digest. You can also look at, things that are a little bit more, I'll say marketing inside baseball, if you really want to dive in and dig into these. But again, start high level and just reliable and relevant. Your AMS has so much data about your clients, about what they're doing. Like, that is fantastic data for you to mine to be able to benchmark yourself. And then again, look at your technology and the tools that you're using. Of course, I've already mentioned Forge and Fuse, but there are probably some other tech that is part of your general marketing technology stack that has good data that's probably integrating with some other things. And I would say that does include the native measurement tools that are in things like Google and your social platforms. All right, return on marketing investment, my favorite statistic. My team probably gets tired of me here saying ROMI, 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 but it's the best. So return on marketing investment. And really what's great is that it provides a very consistent number, so that way you can actually do some internal comparison of different channels and different campaigns. So it's also great because it's an equation. We're doing math, and it's one where you can tweak it a little bit to make it most relevant to your business. So you're really looking at however you define your success metric divided by the cost of the campaign. And it depends on how you want to look at your success metrics. So I've seen it done all of these ways. You can look at that immediate sales revenue, like, what'd you get from that? There you go. Your average first year revenue. Sometimes people just skip over first year and they say kind of what's the like second year or onward revenue, like the retained revenue there. Customer's lifetime value, or just kind of look at, the average whatever life cycle of the customer there, not the lifetime value, but just like the revenue over that. So we use first year revenue for our ROMI calculations. But in previous lives, I have used LTV, and then their average kind of 5-year total revenue. So even though that particular organization, the lifetime of a customer was generally considered to 7 to 9 years, we stopped our ROMI calculation after 5. So we're running a little ahead of schedule with the hope that we'll have lots of questions, but I do want to kind of lay out what to expect from the rest of this series. So we'll be talking about more specific marketing channels and tactics over the next few weeks. Next week, we will be kind of doing a specific deep dive into email. And we'll have a special guest, Jody Geiger, from the Ohio Insurance Agents Association, will be joining us for that. And that's really where we'll start talking about your send volumes, your open rates, your click-through rates, your engagement rates. Those all mean different things. We'll look at some email ROMIs, and we'll talk kind of about the agent experience of like what to look for and how to make it really, really attainable. After that, we will take a little week off because we are throwing a lot of data and data practices at you. And on the 13th, we'll be looking at benchmarking websites. Again, another one where there's a ton of possible data. So really great to do a deep dive in there. And then we'll end the series in a few weeks talking about benchmarking your social media. That's a fun one. And that's where, again, things can kind of get like a little crazy about ways to think about it. So I'm really looking forward to walking through that one. We've got a question. So Nicole asked, what was the name of the marketing publication that I like for benchmarking? There are a few. One place that I always go kind of to start is HubSpot. They are a CRM provider, but they actually do a lot of research and a lot of aggregation from very reputable sources. So they have a marketing blog that honestly I just get emailed to me every morning, and usually do a click through as I'm starting my day over coffee, grab some really great stats from that. But I would also say, my team just pulled some great stats from an article that was in PC 360. So like, don't sleep on our industry publications either. Any other questions from the group? Yeah, you're very welcome. All right, so here's a good one. It's a, what if I really want insurance industry data, but all I'm finding is like banking? And that is a very fair question. And honestly, that's one that frustrates me a lot of the time. That's where I say, go and dig into those industry publications. And I'm a absolute devotee of looking at what the research firms do. Those are other ones that I get sent to me all the time. But a lot of the time they just kind of throw it's financial services and insurance, and you might find a stat or two that's insurance specific, but that's where I kind of say look at that more as your next level benchmark, and then look to our industry focused publications and research groups for that. One research firm that I like that does occasionally break out insurance is Gartner. They are really, really marketing focused. I mean, they get like super marketing wonky, might be kind of like a 301 or 401 for if you're not in it every day, but they do have some nice stats. How do I know if benchmarking data is reliable? There should be many sources if I Google things like what's a good open rate, for example. Great question, because it does seem like if you go and look at something, you'll get 7 different answers, right? And that's where I go back to consider the source. If it just seems to be I hate to say this, but like a random blog where there's not a lot of original research, or where it seems like they're citing the same source over and over and over again, that would give me a little bit of pause. And that is also where I kind of go back to the big guys. Look and see what Salesforce says. Look and see what HubSpot says. Some of those CRM companies do have good data. The other thing that I would do is, before kind of jumping on that, look at your own internal benchmarking. Look at your Fuse dashboard, for example, and then go and kind of look at what's out there and just see, like, if something feels wildly different, trust your gut there. The only other thing that I would say with being cautious about looking at data is looking at some of that benchmarking data from external, is if they are citing one study over and over and over again, get a sense of what that sample size was. Because if you send an email to 5 people and all 5 of them open it, and you've got 100%, engagement rate, that's a sample size skewing. We'll talk more about that in the upcoming weeks. But that is one way just to kind of check the data, is check their sample size. Let's see. Great question. We've got one asking, how does benchmarking differ from small agencies to large? It kind of doesn't, in terms of the putting it into practice. It's a large agency might have a larger pool of data to draw from. You might be doing more marketing activities because you have more resources, perhaps a dedicated resource to devote to marketing. But the practice of calculating a ROMI, of saying, I sent 15 emails in January and their average open rate was 14% versus industry standard of 11%. It's kind of the same. It really is just the volume of activity that changes, and what you want to benchmark yourself kind of against internally. or externally. Even looking at those aggregated financial services numbers, many of them do break out by revenue generation year over year. So, kind of it's your comparison might be different, but your process is going to be almost exactly the same. The process that we use for doing benchmarking at Agency Revolution is the same one that I use working at Fortune 100 companies. It's always looking at data. Data is the great equalizer. One of the things I love about it. You know what? I think it looks like we're slowing down a little bit on questions, which is great because we are going to be able to get into them in those deep dives in the next few weeks. What I'd love to do is just kind of remind everyone to please join us in these upcoming webinars on benchmarking, where we'll talk about your favorite marketing tactic and maybe some others. On 2/15, we'll be doing our monthly pit stop, and that's going to be on the Forge dashboard. So strongly encourage everyone to join us there because it's going to kind of give you a chance to visualize some of the data that you might be able to use in terms of your own internal benchmarking. And then on 2/21, we'll be doing another demos with Dave. So Dave Martin, our VP of Sales, is going to be on, and he's going to be kind of giving you a very kind of low-key walkthrough into the specifics of some of our product features, give you a chance to really see things in action and understand how they work and how they can help provide you with some benchmarking data. So again, please reach out to us at any point. Visit the website, give us a call, email us. You can find me on LinkedIn. And really looking forward to chatting with everyone over the next few weeks as we start digging into data. And I am very glad to give folks a little bit of time back with it blocked on your calendar so you can go make a few more calls. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you in a week.